Hello, and welcome back to the Cigar Thoughts videocast podcast, hosted graciously by Joey and Evan here at the Glow Nightclub in downtown Bellingham. We're going to be here every Tuesday around 7 o'clock. Come on down, have a beer, say hi, watch the show. With me are my two usual partners in crime, Brent, editor-in-chief of What's Up magazine, Matt Nichols, former offensive lineman, all-conference at PLU, helped them win a national championship. And we haven't been on the air in a couple of weeks, been enjoying the bye. Right in the halfway point, we're going to take a look at some things that we saw in the first half, some things we are going to be looking for in the second half of the season. But I do want to start with the game. You know, we didn't do the podcast last week. We didn't really get a chance to chop up what I thought was a very, very important game for the Seahawks. I didn't expect that to be a feel-so make or break in that one, but it was, and they won the type of game that they've lost this year. Brent, anything stand out to you?
I mean, obviously it was tighter than we would have assumed going up against the Cowboys, but the Cowboys were a desperate team. We saw it again, Monday night against the Eagles. I mean, it was Sunday night. They're a desperate team that's really looking for some wins, and they really kind of came with their game. So you would have thought it was going to be 30-12, and it was 13-12, but it was good enough to get us to 4-4. We had the break, and I feel like it did what it needed to do, I guess. Is what I'm getting at.
It was one of those games where I didn't think it would be 30-12. Those games are really, really, really hard to have happen on the road.
Sure.
And their defense is too good, and they have just too good of an offensive line from where I was sitting to think that it would be something like that. That was closer than everyone in Seattle wanted it to be. I thought one of the things that stood out to me right away was Richard Sherman making that tackle on Des Bryant on the first play on that quick screen. Him coming up and sticking his nose in there and just absolutely tackling him set the tone. Him following Des Bryant around all game long. Their defense is looking more and more comfortable when he's doing that. He's looking very comfortable doing that. He had a couple of great pass breakups. I thought the other thing that was huge is when it mattered the most, their offense and their defense came. They had a 17-play drive that basically took up half of a quarter to get down there. Russell made some incredible plays. The receivers made good plays. The offensive line blocked well. That was an absolute essential drive. They had to have had that. And then to get down to the red zone, kick the field goal seems to be the style that's been going on this year. It's a little frustrating. But then for their defense to come back out and not to let them go anywhere, for there to be, I still believe that's a bullcrap call on Michael Bennett. He gets blocked into the guy's legs. That's going to happen. I think it's a BS call that he got a 15-yard penalty on that for roughing the passer. And then the whole man in motion, take 10 seconds off, but they get to replay the down. Again, things we've never heard of and rules we've never heard of.
Just to be devil's advocate, didn't the Seahawks dodge a 12-man in the huddle, back-to-back timeout debacle at the end?
Absolutely.
I mean, it just seemed to me like those refs were not prepared to the game. Like, you know that feeling when you oversleep and you got a test in your first class and you're like hustling to the classroom and everyone is on question 5 and you're embarrassed and trying to get going? I mean, I assume that's what it's like. It's not like ever happened with me. And I felt like that's what the refs were doing. I felt like they were trying to catch up and check their notes and make sure they were getting things right, and we're scrambling and we're behind the game. I do think there were calls that went both ways. But you're right, on that final drive, it was like, okay, sweet, we got that field goal. Pinned him on the kickoff. Good defensive play. This is going to happen. Wait, what? Penalty? Okay, another good defensive play. We're going to get them. Oh, it's a penalty on them. It should be over. Wait, it's not. They're not going to run off the clock. Okay. And it was just sort of one of those things where I kept waiting to say they did it. They got that one play that they needed. And finally they did. And I think that what we've seen in the last 2 games, and the usual caveat for the 2 quarterbacks that they played, was the inverse of what we saw in most of the first 6 games of the season, which was when it comes to the fourth quarter, there's this huge disparity that was in the favor of the Seahawks opponents. I mean, really, the only game where that wasn't the case was the Jimmy Clausen game. Even that win over the Lions dominated that fourth quarter. You know, you had the offense unable to get first downs, the defense unable to get third down stops or come up with the turnover. And then in the last two games, what we've seen is complete and total fourth quarter ownership. I mean, in the last 20 minutes of the game against the Cowboys, the Seahawks ran 75% of the offensive plays and gained something like 90% of the yards. They didn't give Dallas a chance to win. And Seattle left a lot of points on the board in that game. No question about it. But it looked to me like the type of defense, even down the stretch, where we saw the last couple of years where it's like, all right, offense isn't clicking today, we got you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's no coincidence. You were looking at a 4-game stretch that Cam Chancellor was in there, and they were still trying to get their whole vibe going.
Yeah.
That he missed all of training camp, the 4 games in the preseason. So if you take those 4 games that he would have normally had to start the season, you put him in the first, third to 6th week. That was his training camp, and that was a way for the time for the defense to kind of figure out where they were at with everything and kind of get in their own rhythm. As soon as they had what would normally have been Cam's training camp, all of a sudden they're locked in. They're locked in against the 49ers. They're locked in against the Cowboys. 2, they weren't locked in. These aren't the caliber of the Panthers or anything like that. So there's that caveat. But the defense finally looks like the defense that we've known and we've come to expect.
When you're seeing guys getting rotated in that are playing a lot less now, I mean, Deshaun Shedd got quite a few snaps.
Yeah.
I mean, Clark back in there, Cassius Marsh, and
Kerry Williams is figuring his legs. He's
all,
figuring out the system.
Yeah, all of these things are going to make a difference for the second half of the year. Cliff Avrill's he's playing an amazing amount of snaps and playing those snaps unbelievably well right now.
This is the best Cliff Avril I've ever seen.
Oh, hands down. I mean, he has been dominant. The number of times he's just rushed tackles and put them on their ass with a bull rush, he's probably has 5 of those this year. I mean, he's just been absolutely dominant. And it's not necessarily showing up in the sack numbers for him, but it's showing up in the quarterback hurries, and he's forcing guys to step up where Michael Bennett is then getting the sack, or Brandon Mebane is. It all works synergistically together. So and Avril's just absolutely balling out right now.
Yeah, he is. And Michael Bennett went into, at least this week, tied for the league lead in sacks. I don't know if he still is or not, but what we're seeing is a defense that is starting to get home when they were just this close to getting home that first month and a half of the season. And that's been really, really cool to see, because we've always thought of this defense as finishers, and they haven't been finishing. And so that's been, I think, to me, that was the most encouraging thing from the game. And the second thing, 1 and 1A, was the offense's ability in the fourth quarter to completely strangle the game and to move the ball. And you mentioned a 17-play drive with the game on the line. Down 2, you just had your field goal blocked. You got to go 90 yards, or you started your own 9-yard line. They didn't, they went 75 yards, whatever it was. And to just get third down conversion after third down conversion, to get plus yardage on first down and open up the playbook over and over again, like, that was really, really encouraging. That was body blow football that Pete Carroll is such a huge fan of, and that we had seen for 2 and 3/4 stretches. But this was the whole game. The offense just moved forward, not in big chunks, but they just kept moving forward. And the defense won their battles too. And so that was really encouraging. Now, the difference is that game's not going to beat a playoff team. The game that we saw isn't good enough to beat the teams that are really going to threaten for getting to the Super Bowl. So, Brent, I want to start with you. What is it that you think needs to happen, or let me rephrase, is there anything happening right now that gives you more hope that this is a team that can beat teams that don't have Clausen, Stafford, Kaepernick, and Castle as their quarterbacks?
On defense or on offense? The way I say it, on offense, we're just starting to really see the emergence of Jimmy Graham. He's getting a whole bunch of throws. He's getting a whole bunch of catches.
He is dominating.
And you're seeing them figure out where best to use him. Him figuring out how to use the offense. Now it hasn't equated to the red zone yet at all, which we'll go into. But we're 8 in. That's when the Hawks have a 10-game preseason. Now is when this is how they roll. This is the second half. They really get into it. And I think that's what you're going to start seeing is the dominance of Jimmy Graham explode in the red zone.
Well, it's just,
everything.
Yeah, and he's just going to be able to open up so much more for them in the run game. I mean, the run game's starting to get back on track. I mean, they've run the ball really well. They're still second in the NFL in rushing per game,
which is amazing because they look like crap.
Yeah, and we again have these maybe false expectations of what their running game will be every time. I mean, we all expect 25 carries from Marshawn and 125 yards every game. That's not realistic. But as a whole, their offense is running the ball very, very well. Jimmy Graham in the passing game is going to open up quite a bit. We also saw some things that I've liked the last couple of weeks is on the play action passes, we haven't basically made Russell take on that backside DN by himself on a play action bootleg. It's been much more out of the I formation, fake the dive and then pull back with the backside guard or center pulling back to block back. So it's Bevel's using him a little differently. The offensive line is starting to come together a little bit, hopefully.
Just as they said.
Yeah, and this is exactly
the whole time. That it's there. They just have to learn to play with it.
And Dallas has a very good defense. There's some very good football players there, including Greg Hardy, and Alvin Bailey did a very nice job against him. The scheme was good. They moved Russell out of the pocket. They had some quicker passes. They weren't. There were still the shots downfield, but there was more of like the quick 3-step and quick 5-step drop stuff, just getting the ball out of Russell's hands. So those kind of things are really going to help an offensive line. It's not the ideal position where they'll be sitting. We've given some games away that we shouldn't have. This is still a team that can make a run at any point. It's going to feel like a make or break game every week for us for the rest of the year. Are they all make or break games? Not really. I mean, let's be honest here. If they lose one out of the next or two out of the next handful of games, it's not the worst thing in the world. It just puts them in a really hard position. But as a fan, it's going to feel like a make or break every single week from here on out.
If we can get the win from the Cardinals, then we're just one back with 7 to go, which
exactly,
as we well know, is a great position to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Rams, while they look like with Gurley, they could be holy shit good. They're not. They're still sitting back at 4-4. And obviously, I
think that the NFC contenders, and granted, there's going to be a lot of teams who are thinking the same things about their squad that we are about ours. But you know, let's say they don't catch the Cardinals for the division this year, right? You look at the wild card contenders in the NFC, and we're talking about like the Minnesota Vikings, the New York Giants. The Atlanta Falcons, Philly, Philly, whichever one of those two doesn't win the division, and I'm looking at those teams, and I don't see anything resembling the Seahawks in terms of talent. Right. So 2 months of football is a really long time to let talent win out, and it's not like they're buried. I think even at 3-5, the Seahawks would have a very good chance of leapfrogging a lot of the teams. You know, they still have the Rams at home. And so, to me, they still seem, of all the non-division leaders, I still think they're the class of that next tier. And that's great, and I do think they'll make the playoffs. But they need to get, I think, considerably better to win in the playoffs. Because if you get in as a wild card, you're not going to get any chintzy team to start with. You're going to be going on the road to probably, I mean, hopefully if that happens, they get the NFC East winner, but probably to a pretty good team. And you are going to have to keep doing that in order to advance and really kind of justify the expectations for the season.
But as you said, they have the best talent. So if they do land themselves in a position with their chip on the shoulder attitude, which I think has been missing for a lot of the first half, it's not to say I would love to see them in that spot because then they're going to get pissed and go forward, but they do have the talent, and they're going to have to get a lot better. But as fans, that's what we know. We have the confidence that they are going to get a lot better. I mean, there's not anybody here, and I don't know about listening on KJR or 710. I haven't heard much of jumping off a cliff. This isn't the spot we want to be in, but this is the team we would rather, of anybody, this is the team we'd rather be behind.
Well, the last 3 seasons since Russell's been here, every year they've gotten better. They've had a better second half than first half. I mean, and Pete Carroll's teams. Look at them.
I think they've gone 7-1 on their final 8 games each of the last 3 years. I'd have to check on
2 years ago. I think they went 6-2.
Yeah, look at Pete Carroll's teams at USC too. I mean, they were consistently in the second half of the year. I mean, they were running the table a lot, but they were playing really good football.
Would he win like 31 straight November games? He basically won a decade without losing in November.
Yeah, I mean, so all of his teams are doing that. One of the key reasons we've been able to do that is we've stayed healthy. And again, this year we've been able to stay healthy for the most part.
Yep.
Yeah. Bobby missed a game. Russell Coons missed a game.
Marshawn a couple.
Marshawn, we've had a little bit here and there, but we haven't had the Marshawn for the season or Russell for 5 games or anything like that. Though that's huge, because if we lose an Earl Thomas or a Cam or something like that, that changes the dynamics immediately. And being able to stay healthy has been huge.
We're going into the second half. Lane's coming back. We don't necessarily expect him back for the Cardinals, but hopefully one of the next ones. P-Rich will be back, and this might be a good time to talk about that hit on Ricardo, because he'll be taking his spot on the roster.
Yeah, and that the only silver lining of that is that it saves a tough roster decision.
Yeah, Matthews isn't going to get cut.
But you're right, Brent. We would be remiss if we didn't mention that hit on Ricardo Lockett. It sounds like he's doing as well as could be expected from someone that didn't move for 2 minutes, but it might be the end of his career, and if it is, I just got to tip my hat to Ricardo Lockett, because everyone that plays in the NFL is a warrior, right? Like to psych yourself up to go into that arena has got to be crazy, to have the talent and the will to do it. But even among that, Ricardo was really singular in a lot of ways. I mean, he was a Mad Max type player, and I remember when I was at the Monday night game against the Lions, and they flashed the stat up on the big screen that they have all the next gen stats that track how fast guys are going. Yeah. And the fastest anybody had been clocked in a game all season was Ricardo Lockett at 24 miles per hour change, right?
Like so silly.
In pads, we're talking like borderline Olympic trial speed.
So fast.
Yeah. And so we're talking about someone who in a league full of just super fast dudes might be the fastest in pads.
Right.
Is big. He's not Dry Archer or Trendon Holiday out there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big dude. He did everything so hard, and that's why as frustrated as I was by the penalties that he would get, they were always full speed penalties, and he did everything so hard. And I don't know if the hit was dirty. I don't know if they were targeting him on that. Yeah.
The one thing you do know, though, and you could see it just after the play, was whether it was he was being targeted, whether it was a dirty hit. He was not. He was scared.
Yeah.
And he was very upset of what had happened, and that showed a kind of a humanity to the game that I think sometimes gets obviously missed.
It took till the fourth quarter before I checked back into that game.
And that's what you got that sense with the team itself.
Yeah.
Is they came out sluggish, not in a way that it just that it took a while to get over that kind of scenario.
It was one of those things where, as a fan watching it, my wife and I, both of us, were dead quiet, and I looked down, my hands were shaking a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, it was just awful seeing that.
A little bit welling up.
Absolutely awful to see that. And you could really see the reaction from the players, after he leaves the field, and in the interviews after the game and in the following week. All of them talking about not just what a great football player is, but how much they love him in the locker room as a human being. I thought that was really neat for them to all touch on that as well.
Yeah, it's obviously a shame to lose Lockett, but it does open some things up. And, whether Ricardo ever plays again, certainly far beyond any of us to say. But moving forward, it does create an opening for Paul Richardson, as we discussed. And I guess I'm having a hard time seeing exactly where he fits in. I'm sure he'll be rotational for a little bit. Ideally, for me, I think I would like to see him take over for Jermaine Kearse.
Yeah,
I know,
seriously.
a lot of people love Jermaine Kearse, played at UW. He's had some huge catches for the Seahawks, some of the biggest ones in franchise history. But to be a number 2 receiver, to be getting the number of NFL snaps that Jermaine Kearse does, you have to get open more. Like, you just have to. You have to be able to get open without running plays that are designed to get you open.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Jermaine Kearse is that guy. Jermaine Kearse, I think, is a really good check down receiver. I think he's a very good blocker. There's value in him. But Paul Richardson at least represents a ceiling there that, they don't have with Jermaine Kearse. That said, he's not as polished as Kearse, but we're talking about lower floor, higher ceiling, and high floor, low ceiling isn't going to do it if this particular team wants to win another Super Bowl.
The thing that Jermaine Kearse does better than anybody else on this team is when the play breaks down, he scrambles and finds an open spot better than anybody else. And we saw that it was kind of an issue with Jimmy earlier in the season. How is it going to be for P. Rich coming back? Baldwin has been very good, but Jermaine Kearse is absolutely the best at when a play breaks down and it's, find that open space so Russ can get you the ball. He's absolutely the best at that.
But you're starting to see Lockett become really good.
Absolutely, and we're starting to see Lockett become more in the pass game, whether it be the long touchdown pass or it be some of these quick little 6 and 7 yard hitch routes, or even the screenplay that they ran early in the game in which Kearse and Baldwin are out there blocking for Lockett and they throw him to the quick little wide receiver screen and he scoots through for 12, 14 yards, something like that. We're seeing him being incorporated more. I think coming back from an ACL or second ACL tear for P. Rich too, it's going to be a pitch count for a while.
Yeah,
it's going to have to be.
Yeah.
There's no way he didn't get training camp. He didn't get any of that time leading up to it. He didn't get any of the contact practices. Again, we have to think about because their training camp didn't happen. He's not going to be having any of those scrimmages in which he's getting tackled or anything like that in this week of practice or in last week's practice. So he's going to be on a significant pitch count.
But that being said, a lineup that includes Tyler Lockett, includes P. Rich, and includes Jimmy Graham, and then Mr. Possession or finding the open spot, Doug Baldwin, Marshawn Russell. I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's not to point out the absolute obvious, but you've got two guys. Once P. Rich is in full mode, those are two fast MFers.
Yeah.
With then Jimmy Graham.
You can say motherfuckers here.
I
Just
know it's a safe zone. I'm not saying you have to. Just
is MFers my safe word
here right now.
it's a safe couch you're on.
That's an exciting possibilities for the team to have two guys who are that damn fast.
Here's the thing, though. Every single team has players like that. You don't get drafted in the first, second, third round without having the ability to do that. But to matter in the NFL, you have to do it all the time. And that's what I'm not sure that the Seahawks have outside of Jimmy Graham and, in his way, Doug Baldwin. You don't have guys who can consistently win. Paul Richardson had some big catches towards the end of the year and looked like he was getting it, but most of those were on broken plays. And yeah, Seattle relies on those a whole lot more. But part of that equation of everything being a broken play is, can you get open on time? And there is a huge difference between getting open and getting open on time.
Absolutely,
it is so hard to win in your first 3 steps. And I don't see a lot of Seahawks receivers, for all the speed and agility and quickness and great hands they have, I don't see guys who can consistently win those first 3 steps.
Speed, agility, and great hands. Who are you talking about?
Well,
that's just Tyler Lockett at this point, really, because
he might be the guy that has the most of all 3, but what you don't have is any size. What you don't,
Right.
the size guys aren't good enough to get on the field. Chris Matthews or Carter
Well, I
Lockett.
guess that's my point, is that when we talked about this, we had these discussions at the end of last year where it was 5 free agents as receivers. So, I'm assuming Doug Baldwin is not watching this, so I can say they're not necessarily that good. And if you have guys in there like Tyler Lockett, P. Rich, guys that are higher draft picks, that maybe they can open it up in ways that we haven't seen before because their talent hasn't necessarily been there in the past.
Well, and I think we've also seen the evolution of this offense coming too. They're not doing as many deep drops this last game. There were, rub routes or pick routes. Jimmy Graham had one of them, in which he cut right behind, I think it was Jermaine Kearse, and caught the ball in a little quick slant route for a first down. There was another one, maybe it was Doug Baldwin off of one, or T-Lock, and I don't remember who. But we're seeing more of these quick plays. Those aren't something that Seattle has done much in the past. And again, it's learning the learners, learning how to get these players in the best opportunities. So going forward in the second half, I would expect to see more of those. And I think with P. Rich, with his speed and his quickness, he'll be really good at those. But again, he had no training camp, no timing. With Russell Wilson, they've had a bye week. It's not like Russell was hanging around at the VMAC.
Apparently he was in
so all of these things are going to take time. The thing with this offense that has kind of really hurt the rhythm has been keeping drives alive. And not every drive is going to be a touchdown drive. Not every drive is going to be a scoring drive. But we need to have more of the 6, 7, 8 play drives that end up with John Ryan punting the ball from midfield to pin a team deep.
Sure.
We're not having any of those. Those are the drives that give your defense a break, that allow the offense to stay on the field a little bit longer, that allow your coordinator to figure out what defenses are doing against different formations. We're not doing that. We're having these nice long drives, or we're having a 3-play or 4-play and punt drive. But we've got to have more of these 6, 7, 8, 9.
And honestly, that has to be guys getting open. And that to me, if we're talking about second half themes, we can break it down into red zone efficiency, third down efficiency, Russell Wilson hanging onto the ball too long, whatever. Guys got to get open. You just have to be able to get open consistently. And if you're the first read on a play, you have to get open more often than not. And if you're the second read on the play, you have to get open more often than not. And the Seahawks don't have that. And a lot of the Wilson holding the ball is him. A lot of it is bad blocking that forces him to bail. But a lot of it, and we don't see it because it doesn't happen in the screen when we're watching the play live, we only see the quarterback and the offensive line, is guys not getting open on time. When that third step or that fifth step or that seventh step hits the ground, that ball has to be out. And you don't see that because guys aren't open, or they're not open enough. Jimmy Graham is the only guy that doesn't have to be open enough in order to get that look.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of the things that's concerning. The red zone efficiency, getting guys open, maintaining blocks for the offensive linemen is a huge thing too. Just not staying on their blocks to allow the running backs to get that extra yard or yard and a half. These are all little things relative to what some other teams have, where they have a talent deficiency or a dysfunctional unit like the Detroit Lions, or a dysfunctional unit like Greg Hardy has brought to Dallas, along with the Jerry Jones shit show. All of those things. These are little things that they can work on and get better. These are things that are dysfunctions from the inside that will hold them back, which is great. That's a nice position to be in.
We go over this. We talk about the things that need improvement, things we're seeing. But as it kind of, in my head, it keeps coming back to the same idea that, all right, we're in the spot we want to be. We're not. I'd rather be 5-3 than 4-4.
Yep.
But I love this team. I absolutely love this team, and I don't feel like they have played anywhere near their capabilities, but I believe they can.
Yeah. We saw versus the Bengals the first 3 quarters what they could play like.
Yeah.
And absolutely dominate.
You've seen glimpses.
And then you've seen them absolutely collapse.
But those collapses, the last couple games
have not been there.
Exactly.
They've been able to close out games very matter-of-factly. 7 yards they've given up in the last 30 minutes of football. That's incredible. Between the 49ers game, the fourth quarter.
You're talking about like in the 2 fourth quarters?
Both fourth quarters. So the last 30 minutes of each game, or 15 minutes of each game, so a total of 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's been 7 yards they've given up, so a total of 21 feet.
So went
That's
from
insane.
the sky is falling, they
Yeah.
can't hold a fourth quarter lead to, oh, we'll show you MFers. We're going to hold
And they're going to have a hell of a challenge this week against the Cardinals
Absolutely.
because Carson wants to throw the ball all over the yard. Bruce Arians loves the deep passing game. Chris Johnson has had a revival after being
It's like
shot.
the second leading rusher in the NFL.
Most people's careers typically go downhill after they have a bullet in their body.
Mine did.
His has gotten better. So this is going to be a hell of a test for him on a home game on a Sunday night in which Seattle in the limelight loves the limelight at home. It's going to be a hell of a test for him, and this is going to be a real shakeout going against a damn good quarterback against a defense that is so completely unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to do. If you go back to last year with Luke Wilson absolutely torching them because they put slow-footed Larry Foote on a very fast tight end, and he absolutely went nuts on them. This is one of those games that's just it's going to be frustrating for chunks of time, and it's going to be wonderful for chunks of time.
Now, who else do we have in the second half of the season? We've obviously got the Rams, the 49ers again, and then
We got
Steelers, Browns,
Ravens.
Ravens.
and then Roethlisberger should be back by
Be his first game back.
I'm
just excited to watch Antonio Brown.
Yeah,
That guy is like my favorite dude ever.
but it's a
freaking
what he had
good.
17 catches on
306 yards from scrimmage.
ridiculous.
That's nuts.
But it's a manageable 8 games.
Sure.
And the Browns will be great.
Yeah, Johnny Manziel will probably be their starter by then.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, Cardinals twice.
Yeah, Cardinals twice,
Cardinals
Rams.
twice, Rams. Cardinals twice, Rams once, 49ers once. The 3 AFC North teams left.
Yep.
So they lose one game.
Yeah. Vikings.
Oh, that's right.
Vikings.
Oh, that game
That's
mattered.
gonna be a huge
I did
game.
not expect that
It's gonna be a
to
huge game.
matter.
That's actually a huge
I
game.
think they are absolute fucking pretenders. I think they are the biggest pretenders in the NFL.
100%. So we're looking at doing this for the next 8 weeks, having some good times and celebrating again because this is the team that they could easily go 8-0 over the next 8 games, and all the stewing, all the skies falling that might have happened, and it's all going to be for naught.
Yeah. No, I'm really. It'll be interesting to see this offensive line come together. If Patrick Lewis goes back into center and Drew Nowak comes out because Nowak went back in and played well. Pro Football Focus has rated Justin Britt as one of their best run blocking left guards over the last 3 weeks, which is stunning.
Zero sacks against Dallas.
Alvin Bailey played a very, very nice game at left tackle.
I thought so.
Yeah, we moved the pocket. Hardy got him a couple of times, but we were able to move the pocket around him. And Hardy's for as absolutely horrible of a human being as he is, he's a pretty good defensive end.
That Dallas defense is different with him in there.
Very different. Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. So there are things that are trending upwards and very positive. The sky isn't falling. But this team has some things that they've got to get better at.
100%.
And it's their opportunity to do it or not.
You guys think the Seahawks beat the Cardinals?
Yes.
This week?
I 90-95% chance that they beat the Cardinals.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm incredibly confident. I think, as we talked about in one of the past episodes, that exhaustion is a problem with the Hawks. So coming off of a bye, I think is going to be really huge. They got a good rest at the halfway point, perfect time for it. They're going to come in really fired up, and then there's obviously the things that we always talk about: the Seattle crowd, all the prime time, everything like that. I think it's going to be a good game for a while, but I think they're going to beat the shit out of them, actually.
I think it's going to challenge Seattle defensively more than any other team has challenged them. Maybe going back to the Green Bay game, with the way Carson is spinning the ball, with again Chris Johnson having this unbelievable comeback, Larry Fitzgerald coming back from which everyone was starting to write him off.
Yeah,
they have a lot of fast talent on that team, and fast talent puts defenses in binds. Seattle's going to do what they're going to do. They're going to play cover 3, they're going to play cover 1, or they're going to send Richard with one of the receivers throughout the game, which has been very good. And Kerry has done a nice job adjusting to that because everybody on the defense then has to adjust when a corner starts trailing. This game is going to tax them and challenge them in very different ways. It's going to be exciting to see kind of the chess match that goes on back and forth.
I think we've talked about this year. We talked about last year that when the Seahawks earlier in the season last year and this year just didn't have their mojo, their vibe. You can sense it. You can sense it just amongst the fans now, and I think once you start to get that feeling, and you're getting it from, it's just stupid hippie shit, but it's just like there's a vibe, that they've got their mojo back, and I can't.
I don't think it's stupid and hippie shit at all. I think that winning that internal war of the mind first is what's most important. And getting a couple weeks of home cooking
that's happening now
goes a long ways towards that. But the Cardinals coming off their bye too.
Yep.
Yes.
And if there's a coach that's not afraid of going into an opposing place with all the lights and all the challenges and whatever, Bruce Arians is that guy. Yeah. I love Bruce Arians, man. I love, in the same way that I cheer for the villains in all the superhero movies, I love Bruce Arians. And if Bruce Arians was a college coach, I'm going to play for him. So I'm curious to see, okay, how legit is this team? Because the Cardinals, with Carson Palmer, have beaten Seattle in Seattle before. I mean, they were, before this year, he was one of 2 quarterbacks to do that in the last 3 seasons. And so, and he's playing the best football of his life right now. He has a running game for the first time in a decade.
He's got a good O-line.
He's got a surprisingly good O-line. He plays behind the top 5, or in front of a top 5 defense. And he's got all 3 types of receivers that you want. You've got, the galactic Ubermensch in Larry Fitzgerald, who can do it all. You've got your crazy speedster, T.Y. Hilton style deep threat, and John Brown. And then you've got Michael Floyd, who's a phenomenal big body, run blocking, possession receiver who can go out and win that 50-50 ball. I mean, Seattle will be tested by this team. And Russell Wilson is going to have to make some throws on time really accurately. That secondary, which has had a ton of talent for the last 3 years, but has had some really off games, that's gone. They are balling out right now. I mean, I don't see a weakness on the Cardinals team. So this game is going to tell us how legit they are. I think that they're legit. In the same way that I thought the Bengals were legit, the same way I thought the Panthers were legit, I think the Cardinals are a legit contender for the NFC title. So if they can come into Seattle on Sunday night, Seattle coming off of their bye week, everything slanted in their favor, and win or even be really competitive, which I anticipate them being. This is really, really big. This is, now keep in mind, after 10 games last year, the Seahawks were 3 games out of first behind the Cardinals and came back and caught them. That ain't happening this year.
As long as Carson's healthy.
If they're 3 games behind the Cardinals after this one, it's the Cardinals division, and they will have earned it. I think that is a complete team.
It'll be interesting to see how they play and how they continue to go. Again, health is everything, and we saw for them last year. The second they lost Carson, they were going to Ryan Lindley and a bag of potatoes. They were screwed. So as long as Carson is upright, he can freaking spin the ball all over the yard like nobody's business. He's probably playing the best.
He doesn't stay upright that often.
He's been pretty clean this year. He's been that's the Cardinals team they're playing. I expect Seattle to win, but they're going to have to score 24 to do it.
We have to get pressure with 4 fast. Like those 4 have to get pressure that fast.
Yes, we need to see.
And it's not necessarily sacks, but it's getting people in Carson's face. It's hitting him. It's knocking him down. It's making him move in the pocket so he has to clutch it for an extra second. They have to get there so fast because we can't be sending 5 and 6 guys to get after him, or else that's going to expose the secondary.
I think for me, the 2 guys I'm going to watch the most, and I think that the most will hinge on in this game, are Kerry Williams and whoever lines up at nickel. Burley, Shed, probably not Lane. That 5th DB has been the weakest link so far.
Yeah.
And Kerry's had some great games. He's had some bad games. But I trust Richard Sherman to take care of Larry Fitzgerald. Carson Palmer's got all these weapons, and I trust the Pete Carroll system and Richard Sherman to take down whatever that first option is, whether it's Sherman staying on the left side or if it's him following Fitz around. But can Kerry Williams and Deshaun Shedd, Marcus Burley, all those guys, can they stay with that second and third read? And can that pass rush, like you were talking about, get to the quarterback quick enough to push him off that second and third read and make it a little bit scramble ball? If this game gets muddy and gets ugly and gets grimy, that I think favors Seattle more because they're more adept at that. But I do think that the Seattle offense is going to have to be crisp. They're not going to win this game 13-12. The Cardinals are going to get points. There's not a lot of weaknesses with them. So this, even if I wasn't a Seahawks fan, even if I wasn't a Cardinals fan, this is the game I would be watching to see if the Cardinals are ready.
Yeah, turnovers. I mean, the games in which we've lost the turnover battle, we've won, and games in which we've won the turnover battle, we've lost, which is so foreign to Pete Carroll football. We have to be able to get the ball a couple of times.
Got it.
I mean, we need to be +1, +2 coming out of this game. I really believe to have a chance. It seems to me that interceptions create more excitement for the defense than fumbles do, but we just got to have turnovers. I think Russell has to be able to efficiently lead this offense. They have to keep drives alive.
You're going to have great play from the special teams too, which always gets lost, but you never know.
Yeah.
Lockett is going to be able to bring one back, or make a field possession a flip and the significant.
Who's going to be the other gunner for Ricardo Lockett?
Yeah,
too?
absolutely.
I mean, he's been huge in those. He's been huge in the kickoff game. Not many teams are returning kicks, but when they are, he's one of the first guys down there. So who's going to fill into that role? There's a lot of questions that this game will help to start to answer for the second half of the season. One of the things that the Cardinals do defensively when Todd Bowles was there, and now with it's not a new system, it's just the evolution of their defense, is they run some really exotic, weird stuff, and stuff where we're going to look really crappy because they just flat out throw something so unorthodox at us. But at times in which we do that, we have to be able to catch them and gash them for big yards. We have to be able to, when they're sending 4 aside, be able to block the inside, the guy in the A gap, B gap, C gap, leave that guy in the D gap, and then hit whoever the hot read is because he's going to be open. When we go to our 5 wide set, if they rush 6, which they are known to do, and leave everybody, essentially it's a cover 0, there's no safeties deep, it's mano-a-mano on our 5 wide receivers, we have to be able to win that fast.
You got to win
the ball
fast.
You got to win it fast because Russell has essentially catching the ball and getting rid of it time. So there's going to be a lot of little things in this game that are going to be interesting to see how we come back. And Chris Johnson again running the ball. Carson's never had a running game there, so
he looks great.
Yeah, so if we can shut down that run game, we're going to be in a lot better position to be able to make them one-dimensional. When we can make teams one-dimensional, Seattle wins those games.
What you didn't really talk about though at any point was that Lynch hasn't gone off on anything this year. He's second leading, rusher for the team, but the team is second in the NFL with rushing. But
he actually is the second leading rusher.
Yes,
he's 1 yard behind Thomas Rawls.
Okay, so there it is.
Amazing considering the difference in the amount of carries, but
so
the running game and
the running it's prime for one of those Marshawn kind of games where he does do the 25 and 125 and while it's pointing out the obvious, we've talked about the 5 wide and those kinds of things. It seems that the nuts and bolts of Pete Carroll's game plan will still always come back to Marshawn Lynch, and this is the type of game that Marshawn Lynch thrives on and has the potential to tear some shit up.
Yeah, and has an extra week of rest too.
Yes,
I mean,
coming
back to the San Fran game after having some time off. I mean, he was explosive.
We're going to see 2 teams at full strength. The NFC West might get decided on Sunday night. I hope it doesn't because it won't be decided in Seattle's favor on Sunday night. But we're talking about a big time game, like one of the 2 or 3 biggest games left on their schedule,
Yeah.
which is crazy for their 9th game. But we are going to see 2 teams fully rested, mostly healthy, playing their best football, I think, right now. And so, it's going to be really, really interesting to see if they can pull that off. And if Carson Palmer can win 2 games in Seattle, that is an accomplishment. So anyway, a lot to look forward to. We'll check back with you all next week. Look for the article Sunday night after the game, but I'm sure we'll get a chance to chop all this up, see how right we were. So again, for Matt, for Brent, appreciate you guys joining us, and we'll catch you next week.
Go Hawks.